Don't Breathe is a new thriller directed by Fede Alvarez. It's about three young people who decide to break into a house of a blind man who just happens to have $300,000 sitting around. Upon breaking into this guy's house, they pretty quickly discover that he is one blind man who is not to be messed with, and it doesn't take long before the prey becomes the hunter. If you've been following the reviews for Don't Breathe, you're probably aware that it's been receiving some pretty high acclaim, and it is very well deserved. This movie was so tense. It is easily one of the most tension-filled thrillers I've ever seen in my life. I wouldn't exactly call it a horror film. It was definitely more of a thriller. I mean, I'm not kidding. There were moments in this film I was just sitting there like this, like grasping my own hand, because I went with a guy friend of mine and, couldn't really grab his hand. So I don't know where to begin as far as what this movie got right, because there is a lot. For starters, what they did with such a minimalist kind of a thing, just these three characters in a house looking for this money, and then, all of a sudden the tables are turned and their victim becomes somewhat akin to a movie monster in a way. It was great. It just added so much to the claustrophobia and the tension. Scenes like you've seen in the trailer where the blind guy's coming down a hallway and someone's just backed up against the wall and things like that. There was so many moments that were just white knuckle edge of the seat stuff. The performances were outstanding, particularly the blind guy played by Stephen Lang. I mean, aside from the fact that he was just, hunting these people down, he was just really disturbing. And there's something that happens in the plot, which thank God they didn't give away in the trailer, that just really adds another layer to just how disturbing this guy is. And he was a really effective kind of a movie monster, if you will. And the other standout was definitely Jane Levy as Rocky, the female of the group of criminals breaking into the house. I guess it was a combination of her performance, but also the way her backstory was written. She was a really sympathetic character, and she was kind of, I guess, an anti-hero in a way. Like, despite the fact that these kids doing something bad, you're actually really kind of on their side, and particularly her. She has this really bad upbringing and just wants to escape and make a better life for herself, and you kind of go along with her and sort of think to yourself, well, yeah, I'd probably do the same thing if I was in her shoes. The cinematography in Don't Breathe was also extraordinary. I'd heard a couple of things about how great the cinematography was, and it sort of left me thinking, how good could it be in just, a house? But no, there were some really fantastic camera moves, that sort of thing, some great angles and whatnot. And I think, having a non-American director who doesn't go by the typical sort of Hollywood standards really helped in this case, because it definitely didn't feel like your typical Hollywood thriller. And there was even one scene where the camera just went for this long take, and went under the bed and over and all this sort of stuff, and oh man, it was absolutely fantastic. The use of sound in the film, the sound design, not just the score, which was amazing, but the sound design was so well done, especially when you're sitting in a theater and you've got the whole surround sound thing happening. And it wasn't even so much the sound, but sometimes scenes where there was no sound at all. I mean, God, that just added to the tension so much when the blind man is standing there trying to listen out for his prey and it's just completely silent. Wow, like I said, it added so much to it. And that was the main thing where this movie succeeded. I mean, I've said before, to me, a good horror movie relies on the building of suspense and not so much the boo afterwards, because once the boo comes out or the monster is revealed or anything like that, the tension is gone and you're not left with that lingering feeling anymore. And despite the fact that there were, quite a few justified jump scares in the film, it really built tension so well. I mean, I'm talking on like a Hitchcock level of suspense building. So if I were wearing a hat right now, it would be definitely going off to Fede Alvarez, because this guy is coming out with some amazing stuff lately. I mean, the Evil Dead remake was surprisingly great and also had Jane Levy in it as well. And after this film, man, I cannot wait to see what he comes up with next, because he is becoming a major player in the horror thriller genre. But having said all that, Don't Breathe wasn't a perfect film. There were a couple of things that let it down a little bit for me. For starters, I just thought the ending went far too long. There was a moment in the film, which I'm not going to say anything because it's a big spoiler, but there's a moment where I was kind of thinking, okay, great, the film could end about here and, just have a little bit of epilogue and I'd be happy. But it then went into another scene which I kind of thought was a little unnecessary. Then went into some more unnecessary stuff, and yeah, I think maybe if they'd trimmed the ending down by about 10 minutes or so, I think it would have been far better. And aside from that, I really thought that Jane Levy's character, Rocky, was the only one who was really developed. Like, the other two guys, you didn't really know too much about them, and that kind of made them a little less sympathetic. And I wanted to get behind all three of them in a way, but yeah, to me, Jane's character was the only one who was really well fleshed out, so I would have liked to see that a little bit more. But look, aside from those things, like I said, the movie, it set out to do one job and it did it in spades. It was one of the most tension-filled films I've seen in many, many years, and I'm going to give Don't Breathe an 8.5 out of 10. So this is definitely a good one to see in theaters. I am definitely going to be adding it to the Blu-ray collection when it comes out. If you've seen Don't Breathe, let me know what you think. Hopefully you liked it as much as I did. Drop me some comments either here or on Facebook. All my links are down in the description below because I like to talk about movies and I would love to talk about movies with you. See you next time.
Hey you there. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Click subscribe. You see the big word up the top that says subscribe? Well, click on it. Click on it now! Do it! Yeah!